Federal government approves immediate release of 42,000 metric tons of grains from National Reserve.
Organized Labour issues 14-day ultimatum to government for implementation of 16-point agreement.
And ECOWAS leaders meet in Abuja today.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss rising cases of cancer in the country.
For many people, just diagnosing them of cancer is like a death sentence. But can you really blame them? Especially after listening to reports by the United Nations of more deaths from the disease every year. For instance, 10 million deaths were recorded in 2020 and 1 million annually by the year 2030. So as the world body predicted.
Very sad and painful for those suffering from cancer. And yes, in low and middle income countries, cancer cases have risen astronomically from 5% of the global burden in 1979 to 55% in 2007. And about 70% in 2018.
And of all these, breast cancer remains the most common in Nigeria, and it's closely followed by cervical cancer, then prostate cancer, and childhood cancer. Now, reports indicate that 4 out of every 5 cancer patients died from the disease.
A 4-year cancer control program was introduced in Nigeria in 2018. 6 years later, in 2023, 3 policy documents were also unveiled to help reduce the cancer prevalence in Nigeria.
Indeed, and those documents will include the National Strategic Cancer Control Plan 2023 to 2027. We also had the National Research Agenda 2024 to 2027. Then the National Strategic Plan, again, for the prevention of uterine and cervical cancer. These documents itemize priority areas of action that expectedly will address prevalence, prevention, supply, chain management, data and research, as well as surveillance.
Many questions have been asked on the impact of these programs since cancer fatalities remain the same. Though several factors have been cited as key triggers aggravating the cancer challenge in Nigeria, such as hike in prices of cancer diagnostics, treatment and medications, as well as impacts of the exit of the foreign pharmaceutical manufacturing companies from the country.
Well, these are very serious concerns, and we are focusing on this topic this morning on Good Morning Nigeria because of the gravity of the challenges. And we have assembled a panel of guests that will join us today to, of course, prove a possible solution to these challenges. And on this note, I welcome you once again to Good Morning Nigeria, and it's a Friday's edition. And in the words of Henry, thank God it's Friday. Have a good drink of Good Morning Nigeria. It's a good drink to start your day.
Of course, a drink that will take you really high, just like the Super Eagles flew high and will fly high again on Sunday.
I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go there, Henry. I didn't want to go there.
By the way, your prediction that wearing the green jersey does magic, you know, is coming to pass.
3 consecutive times. Don't go there. Let's wait until Chukwudi comes. When Chukwudi comes, I will take him up on that, of course.
All right, Ian Ray John, I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria today. Of course, the usual segments of the program will be hitting you really hot this Friday. We've got, of course, the papers review, business news, sports, and of course, a peep at the foreign scene much later. But for now, we've got a beautiful Ogochukwuka owner who happens to be a sports enthusiast too, and a great supporter of the Super Eagles, looking dapper and ready to watch the match on Sunday.
How did you celebrate the victory?
Yeah, Ray and Claire. In fact, I was almost fainting.
Yeah? I hope you didn't box the screen of your TV set.
And I watched alone. You know, I was all alone in my apartment, and
that's risky, by the way.
In fact, it was terrible.
Looking at the way the match went,
true, and we came out victorious. And the whole country has been in a jubilation mode. In fact, if you watched the social media space, everybody, in fact, if we can unite like this all the time, there won't be any issue in the country.
And one of those things are policy directives, which I'm sure is one of the items on your news this morning.
Yes, that's where we are beginning with the presidential directive to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to immediately release about 42,000 metric tons of grains from the National Reserve to cushion the effect of the current food shortage in the country. This was part of the outcome of the second emergency meeting of the Presidential Committee on Food Intervention held at the State House.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has been directed to release about 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, and other commodities. We have held meetings with the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, those who are responsible for producing this rice, and we have asked them to open up their stores. They've told us that they can guarantee about 60,000 metric tons of rice.
Speaker of the House of Representatives has urged Nigerians to be patient to reap the fruits of deliberate economic policies and investments on the nation's security architecture by the Tinubu administration. Addressing a special press conference on the state of the nation at the National Assembly, the Speaker advocates synergy among the three arms of government towards achieving the security and welfare of all Nigerians. The Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria have issued a stern ultimatum to the federal government to implement the 16-point agreement reached with the organized labor on October 2, 2023. A statement by leadership of the unions wants the federal government to honor its part of the understanding within 14 days from today, 9th February 2024. The organized labor expressed concern that despite the passage of time, the majority of these crucial agreements remain unmet. The agreements reached with the federal government to the unions were focused on addressing the massive suffering and the general harsh socio-economic consequences occasioned by the hike in the price of PMS and the devaluation of the Naira. In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has again promised more positively impactful programs and projects that will leave the glory of Nigeria brighter than it met the country. It was at the launching of the Renewed Hope Cities and Estates and groundbreaking ceremony of the pilot housing project at Karasana, Abuja. The housing scheme, in collaboration with the private sector, is targeting to deliver 100,000 housing units nationwide.
Shelter is a necessity. It's a human right. And we're here just to do that. What they are about to do, to turn the country to a large construction site for housing units.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has resolved to scale up dialogue with the three member states, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, that have expressed the intention to withdraw from the regional bloc. At the end of its extraordinary meeting, the Mediation and Security Council says it will do all it can to keep the three members within its fold.
ECOWAS maintains the path, the avenue of dialogue, of conciliation, of diplomacy. And that is what has further been reaffirmed here.
When outcomes or unconstitutional activities are undertaken, that is when ECOWAS considers sanctions.
We'll be taking a break now from the news segments, and thereafter, Claire and Ian Ray will be back for the rest of the program after the break.
From the boardroom at the Broad Street in Lagos to the main streets of Kano and Nembe Creeks in Bayelsa, I hear the groans of Nigerians who work hard every day to provide for themselves and their families. I'm not oblivious of the expressed and sometimes unexpressed frustrations of my fellow citizens. I know for a fact that some of our compatriots are even asking if this is how our administration wants to renew their hope. Dear compatriots, take this from me. The time may be rough and tough. However, our spirit must remain unbowed because tough times never last. We are made for this period, never to flinch, never to falter.
The minister at a consultative meeting with stakeholders of international and indigenous oil companies, major and independent oil marketers, LPG dealers, regulators in Abuja intimated them of government's plan. Gas producers said total gas debt to gas-producing firms was now $1.3 billion, saying this is negatively impacting on investments in the sector. The federal government decided to focus on 3 priority areas to ensure sustainable development in the country's gas sector, which includes cutting down cooking gas price significantly. The cost of cooking gas in Nigeria has been steadily increasing in recent months due to various factors like global energy, price fluctuations, and local supply chain challenges. The minister further stated that the government is implementing initiatives like the Gas Supply Stabilization Fund to improve gas affordability and stabilize the market. In another development, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, and the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms have agreed to collaborate on deployment of reliable data, public disclosure to support ongoing governance and institutional reforms and public finance management. Rising from an elaborate meeting in Abuja, the Executive Secretary of NEITI and the Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms agreed to work towards improving Nigeria's microeconomic environment. This is as the committee is also looking at oil and gas, which is a core area of focus by NEITI, as well as non-oil resources like the solid mineral sector, which NEITI accepts to support in areas of information and data. NEITI's Director of Communications says the collaboration will prioritize initiatives aimed at enhancing transparency, accountability, and integrity in the management of Nigerians' extractive resources through promotion and facilitation of participatory and inclusive dialogue with stakeholders, engagements, and information sharing, building trust, promoting responsible resource management, and combating illicit financial flows. Let's take a look at Thursday's trading on the floor of the exchange. With business, Vivian Izadifi.
All right, many thanks, Vivian, for the business package. Up next is newspaper review.
right, it's my pleasure to welcome Chooks the boy.
Claire? So we have celebrated without you yesterday.
I know.
But I told everyone that you talked about the magic of wearing the green vest.
Two things I've been talking about.
Yes.
The logic of starting, poorly.
And I said it was a weird theory on human progression. But it's worked so far. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning. That wasn't. I don't take credit for that. This last one.
Okay.
That was Coach Bumi Haruna when he was here.
You're a good journalist. Attribution is very important.
Yes. But mine is the green shed. I've observed it over the years, and I kept on emphasizing.
Actually, the intensity you bring in when you assert it is telling. Nyere, good morning.
Good morning. I would take credit for, telling Nigerians to pray for the Super Eagles. I remember that when we had the program before AFCON began, when we were talking about how unprepared we were and the inability of the coach to actually see the team get to El Dorado, I actually championed the prayer squad.
Claire,
I'm sure
Claire, we have headlines to take.
I know what you are going to say.
I'm a very stubborn journalist.
I know what you're going to say about
we should pray to God. Are the other teams not God's children?
I don't know.
Nigerians are prayer.
Do you know from what happened on Wednesday night? It's clear that God is a Nigerian. Did you watch that match? Did you see the progression?
No. God is a universal God. God is a universal God.
Well,
He's God of all nations.
I just want to say that it just shows that the God of football was on our side on Wednesday.
Anyway, whatever happened,
the boys were good.
The boys played their hearts out, and both the wings, the middle, the backbenchers, the defenders.
You have not mentioned him. The goalkeeper
was, But please, let's start with the Daily Trust. And Daily Trust, of course, has the story on provision, for the poor. That's the grassroots, and it has a caption: Imams, bishops, to government provide food security to the poor at the grassroots. I think that's what this caption should have read. Chukwudi, you correct me. Then it comes with some riders: fresh protest in Kano, Labour issues strike ultimatum, Niger governor apologizes over arrest of protesting women, Nigerians' resilience being tested, Speaker, and Tinubu orders release of grains. And the grains you see at Nyanya Market in Abuja yesterday, that's the picture story there. You see the grains assorted, and just above, a little below the nameplate, court orders psychiatric evaluation of suspected killer of ex-boyfriend. That story is on page 16. Okay? Yere, you have two papers.
Yes, I'd like to begin with the one that talks about AFCON. And it says, avoid watching football if hypertensive, doctors warn.
Yes, I saw that one.
Very important, looking at the number of people that passed on from watching the match on Wednesday. Abducted Abuja-bound passengers released. That's coming from the police. Well, the lead story, it's on hardship. Happens to be, what's trending on all the papers this morning, hardship. And this is the leadership this time around. And that's also the direction of the Daily Trust this morning. But the caption on the leadership this morning is Tinubu governors reps attempt solutions. The riders, president orders release of 102,000 metric tons of grains to crash food prices. Will keep executive on their toes, Abbas tells Nigerians. Cutting forex demand, food import inevitable, coming from NGF, and Labour issues fresh ultimatum. Beside the masthead, we have NNPC not increasing petrol pump price. That's coming from an official. And finally, at the bottom of the front page of the leadership, we have Christian leaders demand sack of non-performing ministers. All right, that's it from the leadership. Looking at the nation next, we have food crisis. Of course, also trending here, hardship. Federal government states launch emergency action. Food crisis, hardship. Federal government states launch emergency action. Tinubu directs release of 102 metric tons of assorted items. Governors move to save Naira and insecurity. Away from that, of course, the ultimatum is also on all the papers this morning. Labour issues 14-day ultimatum to government on agreements. Above the masthead, Ojogbo, varsity bursar, NYSC member, businessman die during Eagles Bafana AFCON clash. On page 5, you can read that up. Next to that, we have issues in power sector complicated, says minister. And finally, a red strip at the bottom of the Nation this morning, the front page. Investors buy into Nigeria's economic reforms. And on page 3, why social media should be regulated. Chukwudi.
Investors will always buy into our economic environment because Nigeria is a food basket when it comes to a return on investment. Whatever you put out here sells. It's just for those micro and macro economic tools to be well adjusted so that there's a friendly atmosphere for you to come and plant here so you will reap later, you know. So I like that aspect too you read lastly. But let me quickly say that the instruction to release 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, gari and other food commodities, which was revealed by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, is quite a commendable move, because right now, just as we said yesterday, there is indeed fire on the mountain in terms of affording what to eat from day to day. You get to the market, even before now, you get to the market, you see a lady buying 50 naira palm oil. That tells you it's just for them to eat that evening. I'm talking about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, because now I go to the market regularly. Now, in the current situation, you want to ask yourself, how do those people survive? You see, when we talk about Nyeri and Claire and all that, we're not saying you're not finding it difficult. But there are so many millions of Nigerians right there under you. Those are really the people we should be very concerned about. So let us continue this. But apart from the release of the planned release of the grains, let us also think how much farming input is going to come in from April when the rains return and all that. Because early to bed, I keep saying here, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. What are we going to do to ensure that abundance becomes the other name of agriculture when we start reaping from, let's say, October, November? It's very important.
The president listens. And
I call him the negotiator.
Yes,
he negotiates with you.
And we're glad that he has instructed
that
42 million tons of grains be released. But we are also begging those that will be in charge of the distribution.
Distribution, thank you, Claire.
Ensure
thank you.
That the grains get to the deserved persons.
Free of charge.
Please, let us not divert, because we hear of diversion. Each time directives like this are given, it is us.
I agree with you.
That thwarts the process. And then we now come back to blame the leadership.
Yes.
Please, the leadership has given directive. Yes. Let us ensure that those of us responsible for carrying out this directive do our job diligently. Let us do our job like the Super Eagles did their own, on which day?
Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Yes.
United, one purpose, focused, determined. And at the end of it all Nigerians celebrated. That's just what I would like
Claire,
to see.
I like your appeal about the country the way it is now. It should not become a bed of appeals and all that. Let us supervise implementation.
Supervision again.
Do not assume that Chukwudi is going to remember he attended Sunday school where they told him, love your neighbor as yourself. He could have run into circumstance that turned him into something else which this Sunday school master did not teach him. You need to rein him in if that is the case.
You made a very valid,
important.
Yes, you see, monitoring is very key.
Yes.
Then there must be a good framework.
Some Nigerians have no conscience at all.
There must be a good framework for distribution. Strategy for distribution. Who gets what, why and what, and you scale it down.
That will help accessibility.
Will help accessibility.
Ease of getting those things.
And then as to the quantity to be released, it's important to mention that 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, gari, and other food commodities, while 60,000 metric tons of rice would also be released, and that's why some papers
the millers have assured
yes, so that's why the papers are carrying
is going to happen.
Yes,
and the minister is saying is when that actually happens, for at least 1 month, we should be food sufficient. But as I said, the long run aspect of it matters more. It's not what you ate yesterday that is so important. It's not even what you eat now.
It's what you eat tomorrow.
Tomorrow is always more important. That is why our children should be trained to become better human beings.
But some people will disagree with you that if you do not eat today, what's the guarantee you see tomorrow? So maybe you should think about today first before thinking about tomorrow.
Okay. we have just. I know we have been given just 2 minutes grace.
Okay.
But another fundamental question I would like to ask is, where will these grains come from?
And is it free?
Strategic grain reserves.
I wanted to say that. So we have a strategic grains reserve.
Yes.
And
they're located, if you look at the map of Nigeria, they are dotted there where they are.
Where they are.
They are really spread across
like you said,
the country.
as we're giving out, let's ensure that the next harvest is plentiful.
That's it. So that continuity is assured.
Before we go, please,
no, but I just wanted to ask, because I did mention that free of charge. Is it actually going to be free of charge, or
that I have not? I don't think it's going to be free of charge. No. Please, that's an opinion.
Yes,
I don't have the details.
We don't have the details.
Let's not speculate, please. Yes. I think the essence of it is to inundate the market with these things
and to crash down prices.
Those monopolies, those our darling Kingsley call them witchcraft cartels and all that, will mess up their business.
That's just before we go, and it's again about AFCON 2023, Nigeria and South Africa. It's all over the media yesterday, and this paper is also carrying it. Angry South Africans threaten Nwabali after Bafana defeat. But his club side, Chippa United, says we are behind you. And, on one of these stations yesterday, according to this paper, certain supporters are advising, Nwabali, not to return to the club. But you see, let's not. South Africa and Nigeria are brothers. They have good relationship.
Africans are brothers and sisters.
Yes, but specifically South Africa. So let's not, use, cause what we call bad belly or bad blood. Bad blood, So please, let's not push out negative rhetorics or negative theories. Let's continue to promote our good brotherliness that we are all known for. So that we have many Nigerians in South Africa, just as they also have here in our country. And we must, be united.
You are appealing to them again. South African authorities safeguard our players there.
Yes.
It's not a crime
not
to
just
win.
our players, our citizens.
Our citizens as well. Yes, please. Look, getting people to behave well is very important in management. The McGregor theory that talks about the X and Y managers, it gives you the impression that some people are self-motivated. I think those are the Y people. But the X people, you need to look over their shoulders to see what they're doing. Humanity is like that as well,
Chukwudi, before we did a special report on grain, and here, and we wanted to find out, why some people, younger generations are becoming. It's because I'm seeing you. Gray coming out all over you. That's
why younger generation now have gray hair.
Now have gray hair. So am
I spotting gray hair finally?
You are spotting gray.
I'm going to.
You're just realizing that.
I'm
everywhere.
going to 67. Chooks, the boy has tried. I don't know what you're up to.
Is this wisdom?
Any attempt to embarrass me on the air will be
stress?
stoutly resisted.
Chooks the boy. All right, we leave you now.
Thank you so much, ladies.
And please, again, let's keep praying for our Super Eagles.
And please, those who have a weak heart.
Yes. You know, I told you I don't watch.
Let's be careful.
I don't watch.
Chuku, they will watch all the penalties. Aproka.
You Aproka now.
No, I don't see us getting to the penalties in the final against Ivory Coast.
I think we are going to win in regulation time.
Yeah.
I think so. I agree with you. Totally.
Again, the Ivorians have all the positives. They have capacity, they have home support, they have capacity support, and they are good.
Didn't they have home support
outside home
when
support?
they started? They came as best losers.
My daughter said, my daughter said Christmas does not happen twice. In the case of Ronnie Williams, when people say Ronnie Williams, held 4 penalty kicks, I was telling my daughter, he said, Mommy, Christmas doesn't happen twice a year. It happens just once. Anyway.
So what does that imply?
No, I just want us to keep praying for the Super Eagles and wish them the best of luck. And I join faith.
But when I talked about prayer earlier,
please, let's go for a break. We have sent Tukudi off. All right, to begin our conversation on increasing cases of cancer in Nigeria, let's quickly take this background report by Abdul Salam Jibril.
According to Ali Moreno, a cancer survivor, cancer is just a chapter in our lives and not the whole story. This underscores the importance of the ailment, which for many people, its diagnosis could mean a death sentence. Available data from the World Health Organization (WHO) reveals that cancer is a leading cause of death worldwide, accounting for nearly 10 million deaths in 2020. In Nigeria, some health watchers insist that the country has one of the highest cancer mortality rates in the world, with approximately 4 out of 5 cases resulting in deaths. That is, according to the Global Cancer Observatory. Statistics from Project Pink Blue, a cancer awareness organization, shows that cancer leads to over 72,000 deaths per annum. They note that this number is set to increase, given that there are 102,000 new cases of cancer every year. They maintain that with 20% mortality rate, breast cancer is now the leading cancer death in Nigeria, while liver cancer with 16% is the second, and prostate cancer with 13% is the third. While the WHO notes that cancer treatment, prevention and care has generally improved globally, health experts insist that in Nigeria, this has not been the case. They bemoan the situation, revealing that from diagnosis and treatment to care and support, cancer has more or less remained a death sentence even among the wealthy. They have also pointed out that a common reason for the rising incidence of cancer mortality is due to minimal budgetary allocation for the health sector, brain drain, absence of funding, bad policy implementation, and lack of political will and commitment, among others. Recall that in 2018, the federal government developed a 4-year cancer control program with a vision to reduce the incidence and prevalence of cancer in 5 years and beyond. What has become of the program? For decades, Nigeria has lacked comprehensive cancer centers covering the 6 geopolitical zones of the country where all cancers and care around the disease can be taken care of. Are there plans to institute more cancer centers across the country? These will form the crux of discussions as guests speak to the rising cases of cancer in Nigeria shortly.
All right, many thanks, Abdul Salam, for the background report. Now, joining us for the conversation is Director General, CEO, National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment, Professor Usman Aliyu Malami. Many thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, also here is Mrs. Ladi Mark Mammon,
She's a stage 3 breast cancer survivor and founder Cancer Care and Medical Outreach Foundation. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Welcome.
All right. And we have joining us from Kano, Dr. Muhammad Inwa Mustafa, and is the Chief Consultant Clinical Oncologist and Head of Department, Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Kano. Also joining us from our Kano studio is Dr. Adamu Al-Hassan Umar, President, Nigerian Cancer Society. Thank you very much, both Dr. Inwa and, of course, Dr. Umar. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's start off. Usually we do with Mrs. Ladi Mark Maman, who is, of course, living with breast cancer at stage 3. And stage 3 is, I tell you, it's not an easy stage, one should be in if one, is diagnosed of cancer. But she is right here with us today, and we thank you for obliging us, your presence in this program. Just, we would like you to share with us what it is, accessing cancer care, treatment.
Good morning. Thank you for having me around. First and foremost, I would like to say that cancer is not a death sentence. Why? Because I was diagnosed of cancer 2015 November. When a lump came out and I saw it, then I took the next action, went to the hospital. They did everything, and they got to find out that I had cancer. So what's the next thing? The next thing is to cut off the breast. That's the action taken. Something you don't know, you don't know. But once you know it, you know. Then you take the necessary action. And I did the surgery here, removed the breast, one of them. Then I acquainted myself personally, making investigations, so many things to find out what do I do? What are the necessary things to do aside from the medical aspect of it? Then I got to find out. And I took up.
But I just want you to share, because right now, access to treatment and care is described as one of the major burden for cancer patients. But you were able to glide over this successfully. So what were the issues along the line? How were you able to go through that process?
It may surprise you to know that I've not gone through chemotherapy. I've not done chemo. I've not done radiotherapy. I've not been taking any cancer drugs. One thing I did was, aside from the spiritual aspect of it, I stood on my lifestyle. Taking vegetables, going for exercise, doing the things that will really help me. And that really helps me a lot. For 1 year, I've been purely on my veggies. Exercise, physical and spiritual exercise. Then subsequently, 3-6 months, I go for follow-up, for checkup. And when I saw that, that's what brought my NGO into being. Because I needed to reach out. I know it's painful. It's a terrible thing when somebody say you had cancer. It's not an easy thing, So I needed to go out there, meet up with different people, urban and rural areas, enlighten them on this, and telling them this cancer is not a death sentence. The early detection is key. Once you are able to detect this thing, you're good to go. Take the necessary action.
But did your physician prescribe chemotherapy for you?
They advise. When they cut off the breast, they advise I should go for chemo. And it may surprise you to know that my husband is a medical doctor, a consultant for that matter. They really push me to go for chemo. They do everything humanly possible for me to do the chemotherapy. I did not. I stood on my feet. I say, okay, let me.
But why? Is it the cost or the procedure? What made you to, reject your doctor's advice?
Like earlier stated, I did my own investigation. There's nothing wrong with the chemo. As far as I'm concerned, since this is what the medical lines really want us to do and they feel it's one of the things that help us to come out of this, why not? But on my personal ground, when after the thorough checkup, I've really seen the pains people pass through this chemotherapy. It's not easy. It's not easy. On my own personal, nobody, aside from the doctors, pushing me to do that, I refuse.
So you were convinced that with change in your lifestyle, the exercise and all of that, you would feel much better.
Definitely.
What's the situation at the moment since you took that route?
That's 9 years down the line.
Has it improved?
To date, I've not done chemo, and I've not feel any pain. Every 3 months, 6 months, I go for my checkup, and everything is clear.
All right, we'll get back to you, Mrs. Mammon. Your personal experience is inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of people watching, I think personal conviction is key in whatever challenge that you're going through. It helps you to stay alive or to die. Okay, I want to find out from you, Professor Malami. You've heard the cancer survivor, speak about her personal experience, but looking at the situation in the country as regards cancer, and then the latest figures as regards childhood cancers, what really would you say is the problem? Why are we having rising numbers? What are the main causes? What are we not getting right as a people?
Okay, so thank you very, very much for this very important question. The country or the world over is experiencing a surge or an increase in the incidence of cancer. Why? One, it was clearly stated in the literature that it is because of the aging population. Compared to what used to happen before, if you look at the current society that we are living in the world, we are living the age at which people die, or the life expectancy of actually the world generally is increasing, more so in the Western world. So that is actually one of the key factors. And the more the system is aging, the body of an individual, as it's actually meant to be, used to undergo the cells within the body used to go series of regeneration, death, and then so many processes here and there due to wear and tears that way. So because of those processes of after subjection to wear and tears, the cells will divide. That is the reproductive process, so that at least the worn-out one will be replaced by the normal ones. This series of activities actually gradually will lead to some errors, if we are aging, and that can predispose to what the scientists call a mutation of an aberration within the sequence of the DNA, which is like a thread of cord that cuts the information and regulates the replication, the division of the cells and other activities. So that is on the aging side. Two, if we come to our side here, the most important is the change in lifestyle. The change in lifestyle. We have, for so many reasons, abandoned our culture and tradition, the way we used to live in the past. The culture, what we are imbibing currently, the Western lifestyle, is more of maybe eating from the outlet, all this fast food, drinking a lot, smoking a hell lot of cigarette, physical inactivity, making our food to be more fatty. Unlike before, that virtually our grannies, what they used to do is they go to farm early in the morning, which is by trekking, it's a physical activity. They get to the farm, they farm. It's a physical activity. If they are coming back, what will they do? They will cut some tubers of yam, greens, and some vegetables. Fresh, and come and eat. So, but it's totally different. Nowadays, what we are experiencing in the country, if you, maybe probably during the weekends, if you don't take your children to KFC, all this outlet. If you don't take them out, you'll be considered as maybe second class or third class citizen. But that actually is not a good behavior. So we have to change our social life. That is one. Cessation of smoking. Stop alcohol. If you can, if you cannot, reduce to just a pint. If you must take to just a pint, then please reduce the quantity of fatty food that you are taking and the red meat. Some will say the red meat, if you must take, maybe you can take like there about 500 grams in a week, according to scientists. But what is important here is do it in moderation. You don't have to go here and whatever. Then exercise, which is very, very, very essential and important. And when we say exercise, we don't mean that you have to go and very active exercise here. If you can walk every day for 30 minutes, that suffices. And this 30 minutes, you don't have to do it
at a stretch.
At a stretch. So you can divide it, 15 in the morning, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 in the evening. That suffices.
Professor Malami, thank you for giving us your opening response to my colleague's question. Let me go to Kanu, and I like Dr. Inua and Dr. Umar. Both of you can respond to the question I'm just about to ask you, and I'm drawing it from Mrs. Maman's response to my question about her access to treatment. She's been diagnosed of cancer stage 3 for the past 9 years, and she's lived on without going for a chemotherapy. Does that defy any medical solution?
Okay, hello, good morning. Yeah, her own case is an abnormal thing, because if you look at the cancer, the staging, stage 3 is not an early stage, and this stage, usually if somebody stayed without treatment, the cancer can progress to stage 4, which is a metastatic stage. So I think people should not maybe take her case as maybe to say maybe she has not had the treatment, maybe they can do the same thing, because it's an abnormal thing. And also the staging, I don't know what type of test she has done. Is it a PET scan initially, and even the follow-up test? We need to confirm that, because sometimes if you just do a normal maybe ultrasound chest x-ray, you'll be thinking that you don't have anything in the lungs or liver. But if you can go and do the PET scan, maybe you can find something else. And also, if you look at the cancers, it can be a high risk. The type of cancer differs. There are some that are very aggressive. Like in terms of breast cancer, she had breast cancer, invasive ductal, invasive lobular. This is aggressive, but you have the one that have a good prognosis. Miscellaneous tubular have a good prognosis. Maybe her own has a good prognosis. And also, my concern is that if you stay without treatment, the thing can progress. I don't know what type of test she did, because at that stage, patient needs to go for chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and also the surgery if there is no distant metastasis. In terms of the chemotherapy, usually, chemotherapy, if the tumor is fixed, it can shrink the tumor, which later on patient can go for surgery. And also the radiotherapy, patient can have radiotherapy so that to prevent recurrence, maybe at the primary site, usually to prevent recurrence at the primary site. And also, if there is still a cancer cell, it can also kill the cancer cells. So my concern is, let's know the type of follow-up investigation she's doing, which is very important to be sure that she's cancer-free, because this is abnormal thing. Stage 3 is not like stage 1, maybe, in stage 1, breast cancer, patient can have, especially maybe, for example, if the patient is a hormonal positive, patient can just have a hormone treatment, and that one can suffice the treatment without going for radio or or surgery. But her own stage 3, even the staging, we need to confirm the staging. Is it a proper staging she did? Is it a PET scan? What kind of staging? And also the histological type. Also, is it an aggressive tumor? Is it a tumor that has a good prognosis or something like that? But anybody with cancer, we advise to go for treatment because treatment helps a lot, especially for breast cancer. This is a type of cancer that you can even cure if diagnosed at early stage. So because there is advancement even in diagnosis, before, if you are diagnosed with breast cancer, we give all the treatment, hormonal treatment. Everybody will take tamoxifen or take Arimidex, whether he's hormonal positive or not. But now there's what we call immunohistochemistry. Immunohistochemistry will give you whether this patient will benefit from this treatment or not. The hormonal positive patient can give hormone treatment. If it is hormonal negative, there's no need for giving hormonal treatment as before that you place all the patient on the same drug. So prognosis to immunohistochemistry defines the prognosis and what the patient will take for the treatment. So I think patients need to get more awareness that this treatment, let's get diagnosed early. All this screening exercise really helps. Let's get a diagnosis early stage so that we can aim at cure. Because if it is metastatic at late stage, usually it's palliative, that we don't achieve cure. So that is why every year, 4th of October, we create awareness to our society so that they will come for screening, let them screen, so that even if they're been diagnosed, it will be early so that we can aim at cure, to achieve cure and add survival.
Dr. Mustafa, just so that before we'd get the response of Dr. Umar to that particular question, you are talking about early diagnosis. And, you know, from what we hear, or you know, from reports, most times when people present themselves, you know, in hospitals about being ill or whatever, it is the diagnosis that takes a longer time. What am I trying to say? It is diagnosing that a person has cancer is what actually leads the patient to get to you know, a later stage of the cancer, because most times we hear that health professionals would you know, probably do other things and say, oh no, you have this, and then they're treating all kinds of things, and then, you know, after a very long time before they get to you know, to realize, or if you like, diagnose that the person has cancer. Why is there a delay in the diagnosis, doctor? Why is it that, you know, diagnosing that someone has cancer, it doesn't just come as early as other kinds of illnesses? Why does it take time? You know, because again, if it's diagnosed early, like you're saying, it would also aid treatment and, you know, probably help people to live longer and healthier. The knowledge, what exactly is the problem? Why is there a vacuum?
Specialists in oncology and also in diagnostic, because some of the patients are coming from the village, from the primary health care facilities in which there is a difficulty in making diagnosis, so they can be delayed in the primary or secondary facility before coming to the tertiary facility. That is why there is need for even training the health workers in the primary and also secondary facility, so that if they see any element of malignancy, cancers, they should refer the patient to where there is a specialist in secondary or tertiary facility. But most of the challenges we are having in the secondary facility is not a delay in diagnosis. Most of the patient, there is even the encouraging patient to even believe on the diagnosis. That is the major issue, to especially, you know, coming to say, okay, patient, you have a breast cancer, you want to go for mastectomy to remove the whole breast. It's a psychologically is a major thing. But what you usually tell the patient, that your life is more important than this breast. So if you want to live longer, let's do the right thing. So if you counsel the patient very well, they can believe and go for that for the treatment. Because most of the patients that came early and have the treatment, usually these are the patients that have the longer survival. You see them cancer-free, but most of the patients, even the health personnel, they don't have the expertise in counseling the patient to believe on the treatment, especially the mastectomy, in which most of the patients, you have to sit down with them at least 31 hours, convince them, to tell them that your life is more important. And this is this cancer can be cured if you agree to have the proper treatment. So I think counseling the patient, training the health personnel in primary, tertiary, primary and secondary, even in tertiary, that if you have, these are the few things that if you see patient with it, you cannot do much, refer the patient to centers where they have the expertise so that they can be diagnosed early, have treatment as early as possible, and also so that it can be cured and add survival to the patient. Thank you.
Mustafa, thank you. Dr. Adamu Al-Hassan, I'd also like you to weigh in on, you know, the response of Dr. Inua regarding Mrs. Maman's condition and, of course, her access to treatment and refusal to take chemotherapy. But I also would like you to speak as well on perhaps, because we hear every day care treatment centers being opened, you know, all across the state, some by PPP driven, some of course by wives of state executives and all that. And government is also on its own, also, you know, improving, you know, care centers, cancer care centers across the country. So I'm just wondering what could be the drivers, you know, of these increasing or rising cases of cancer in Nigeria. So you will want to respond to the first one first. So I've asked you 2 questions.
Once again, you see, actually, let me start by adding to the issue raised by Dr. Inua regarding the, you know, paucity of medical personnel or the specialists that are trained to, you know, counsel and to treat cancer patients. Now, the major issue we have in Nigeria is actually lack of trained personnel, lack of equipment, lack of screening centers. And as rightly stated by the Director General, you know, most of these cancers, particularly the common ones, you know, are very highly preventable and very highly treatable also when detected early. Now, talking from the point of an advocate, you know, you look at the 3 most common cancers, you know, the cancers of the breast, cancer of the cervix, and the cancer of the prostate in men. Now, these 3 cancers are cancers that fall along the category of cancers that are highly, highly preventable. You know, 30% of most of them are preventable. Of course, when you follow lifestyle guidelines as stated by the Director General earlier, you know, regular exercise, eating good diet, avoiding junks, avoiding carcinogens, you know, and what have you. Now, for breast cancer, for example, you know, breast cancer is one cancer that a woman on her own, even a village woman, can be taught on how to examine her breast, you know, the self-breast examination, and can be able to detect, you know, tumors that are in their benign stage, that are not cancers, and that can easily be cured, you know, and they may not progress to cancer. Cervical cancer, for example, you know, has a precancerous stage that is not cancer. And that precancerous stage can stay up to 10 years before it develops into cancer. Now, so if detected early, you know, it shortens the duration of treatment, you know, it shortens the seriousness of the complications, you know, of treatment in these patients. And again, protection is there, the human papillomavirus vaccine that can protect against cervical cancer. But our problem in Nigeria, you know, is the late detection aspect, due to lack of facilities for detection, early detection, due to lack of trained and skilled personnel, you know, that can adequately detect and treat these cancers in good time. And then, you know, when you look at the majority of Nigerians, you know, over 85%, according to recent statistics of Nigerians, and I'm sure that statistics must have worsened by now, you know, are paying for healthcare out of their pockets. So most Nigerians are, you know, centered around how to put food on their tables. You know, assessing healthcare is a secondary or even a tertiary issue to them. And so that actually what brings about this the late detection. Ms. Ladi may have been lucky, you know, to be comfortably surviving on diet and on regular exercise and what have you. But the bottom line is that treatment is the best way to go. And of course, chemotherapy is one of the treatment modalities, as rightly stated by our clinical oncologist here. Now, the earlier the cancer is detected, the better outcome for the patient, for the system entirely. And again, talking about rising cases of cancers, well, to us in the cancer advocacy space, when we see a rise in cancer cases, we don't see that as actually a worsening situation, so to speak. We see that probably as an improvement. Maybe more people are going for early detection tests now. Maybe people are going for screening. I was at a flag off of a screening exercise yesterday in Abuja, and you need to see the number of women and men that turned out. I was very happy I got screened myself for prostate cancer, and people were, it was overwhelming, the number they were expecting, quadrupled in a way. So that means there is improved awareness all over, there is improved awareness everywhere, and that is what we need to see, so that we can be able to detect precancerous lesions, we can be able to detect stage 1, stage 2 cancers that can adequately be, taken care of, with the minimal invasive, surgical or interventions or different rounds of chemotherapy that on its own has its complication that is detrimental to the patient. And this is actually some of the side effects of chemotherapy is actually what is pushing away, cancer patients from, embracing that. And then, of course, what do you have? You have in the long run, a shortened lifespan. So now, we expect to see improvement because it means more. For example, as advocates, we believe that cervical cancer is grossly underdiagnosed in Nigeria, and we need to see the correct statistics. In fact, my assumption as an advocate is that for every one cancer patient you see being diagnosed and documented, there are hundreds out there that are dying silently. There are hundreds out there that are not accessing care. So the bottom line is that we need to improve the system. We need to have diagnostic tools. We need to create more awareness. We need to channel our energy through promotion of healthy lifestyle. We need to channel our energy through training of these primary healthcare providers, in basic aspects of preventive services and, of course, screening modalities.
If I may interject, when my colleague asked about diagnosis earlier on, and Dr. Inua, gave his response why it takes a long time to be able to diagnose someone, of cancer. I'm wondering what the processes of diagnosis are. How long, does that entail, and what are the instruments? Because you talk of equipment, I want to believe that it will include going for CT scan and going for MRI. What are the cost implications of the whole diagnostic procedure? Dr. Inua, please, can you take it up, and then we'll come back to the studio.
Okay. Let me talk about the process of diagnosis. Let me start with the breast cancer. So breast cancer usually, as the president of the National Cancer Society stated, that usually a female, even if she's in the village, she can feel a lump in her breast. So if there is a lump, some of them during screening you can get them. Some they can palpate and see the lump in the breast. So after seeing the lungs, usually we requested for the ultrasound or mammogram to see the mass. After that, that's not a diagnostic. It's just to confirm. Then after that, the patient can go for the definitive diagnosis, which is the biopsy, in which a needle is put. We call it a biopsy needle, true cut biopsy, in which is taken to the pathologist, and the pathology will just look at it under the microscope to confirm whether this is a cancer or not. So, and the cost of this, let me talk about the cost of this biopsy. Depend on the location where you are, but the range is maybe around 10 to say 30,000, 50,000. That's to make a diagnosis. And also, apart from that, even doing that, you need to go further to do immunohistochemistry. So immunohistochemistry is one that more expensive than the histological diagnosis, which can cost like 30 to maybe 50,000 to make a immunohistochemistry. So, because immunohistochemistry, as I said earlier, is one that can determine what treatment can patient go for, whether hormonal, whether HER2 to go have Herceptin, or because there are a different category of breast cancer, it can be a hormonal positive, hormonal negative, it can be a triple negative, where all the receptors are negative, which is very aggressive. And this usually we see it in early, younger, black people, and is very aggressive. And so these are the costs. And if you look at the ultrasound for this screening and the mammo, the ultrasound mammo, maybe you can say like 10 to 30,000 to make that diagnosis. But that 30,000 in some patient is a huge amount of money. It's not like we have seen a lot of patients, even getting a money to transport themselves to hospital is a problem. So we have to even get people to sponsor their treatment. So that 30,000 doesn't mean it's too small. For some patients, it's a very huge amount of money. So in terms of the cervical cancer, usually there is what we did for screening pap smear is just a very cheap investigation. So after the pap smear, if you see there is a tendency of maybe having the cancer, patient can go for examination under anesthesia or colposcopy, where you can have an access to the cervix to take the biopsy. After taking the biopsy, then the sample will be sent to pathologists, where the pathologists look at it and see whether it's cancerous or not. If it is cancerous, then the patient can go for treatment. So the same histological P for the histology is the same thing, like 10, 15 to 30,000, depend on the location where the patient is. And also in terms of prostate cancer for the male, usually we do screening, we do PSA, prostate-specific antigen. Prostate-specific antigen to the cost around like 30, 50,000, depend on the location where you are. Then apart from that, if the PSA is high, so is very high, then patient can go for the ultrasound, and also we can do a biopsy to confirm the diagnosis for treatment. So the main thing is not the main thing, the challenging thing is, as he said, the president of the Nigerian Cancer Society, most of the patients are paying out of pocket, So even to get the diagnosis, financing the diagnosis is a problem. If the patient comes, he doesn't have money for even to make the diagnosis is a problem. It can delay the diagnosis. Some, even after making the diagnosis, cost of treatment is very expensive, because you can get a treatment for breast cancer, especially, let me say, HER2 positive. One dose of treatment can cost up to 2 million per 1 to 2 million per cycle. So this is huge amount of money. So that is why government are doing well, at least for this cancer health fund. I think things are better, but they need to do more, at least, so that to cover a lot of patients, especially patients coming from villages and other things, so that because the amount they are giving is not that much that can cover for the whole treatment. So if they can increase and also to cover for all the patients.
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa. Of course, hearing the cost, of diagnosis and then treatment, like you already mentioned, shows that cancer is actually for the rich. Unfortunately, the cancer burden appears to be much higher in low and middle-income countries, and of course, Nigeria is one. And the cases keep rising by the day, and that's why I want to get to Professor Malami. You've heard, Dr. Mustafa, speak about the cost implications and all of that. I want to find out, what is the position of government, concerning, this health challenge? It's a major problem, and then we're losing people to it. And what's even more worrisome is the fact that we're having children now, coming down with this. And the report says that of all the children diagnosed in Nigeria, 80% of them get to die. So please, could you tell us what is going on from your own angle?
Thank you very much for the question. I've heard all what they have said, and I have to state it categorically that government is not unaware of what is happening in the area of cancer space. And not because I'm on the government side now, but I have to start by commending His Excellency Ahmed Bola Tinubu for and the Honorable Minister of State and that is Dr. Tunja Alausa for Health, and the Honorable Minister for Health, that is Prof. Patti, for taking a giant step towards seeing that the right thing is done, most especially in this area of cancer. The government of the day ensure the establishment of an agency that is solely meant for cancer. So currently in the country, happening for the first time, we have an agency that has the total mandate to take leadership in the area of cancer prevention, cancer research, cancer treatment, and generally cancer control in Nigeria. It is happening for the first time. So this institute has the mandate to define policies and priorities of government in this area of cancer prevention, cancer research, cancer treatment, and control. It is happening for the first time. So, and since the inception of the institute, what the institute did was to bring out a strategic plan, which we currently have a 5-year strategic plan on how to prevent this cancer, on how to embark on research in this cancer, on how to advise the government on what to buy and what to do in the area of treatment. All these are happening for the first time in the country. Currently, still happening for the first time, maybe probably you have heard that the Honorable Minister for Health and Social Welfare has has put through the budget of the Federal Ministry of Health to procure 6 more cancer equipments to cover virtually all the 6 geopolitical zones, which are an addition to the already existing ones that we already have in the hospital. That is from the ministry.
Sorry, let me just ask you. I know you're telling us, what the Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment, is mandated to do, and what you are putting in place at the moment. But I also would like you to tell us, since you're also charged with the responsibility of researching for treatment, have you done enough, carry out enough research on what is, driving, more mortality? Because in terms of mortality, I don't know the current statistics, but as at the last time, it was 20% with breast cancer. It was 20% mortality rate in women. Have you been able to, find out what is driving that? Because if we don't know that, then you're preferring treatment solutions, will be misplaced. Yes.
All right. So it may amaze you to know that the institute or this agency is just as old as the government, the current government. So we are there about 8 to 10 months old. So it is an innovation and the creation of this government to tackle this problem. However, for the first time in the history of country, the institute set a research agenda, or what we call the research policy, in the area of cancer. And currently, and we have budget backing for that. For the first time, we have a purely budget that is dedicated for cancer. We are setting out, currently the country will see that before now, or even now, there are no availability of cancer preventive services in our hospital or anywhere. A patient cannot just walk into a hospital and say, I want to get screened. Where will I go? You'll be posted. But for the first time in the history of Nigeria, under the leadership of His Excellency Ahmed Bola Tinubu and Prof. Patti, we have that plan, a budget line, to establish a screening center in an oncology department in the 6 geopolitical zone of our tertiary hospital.
Okay,
that is a very good step.
Let me pause you there. I want to find out something from Mrs. Maman, because you are a survivor and then you have interactions with other cancer survivors. Where would he's talking about establishing screening centers, and I know that some state governments have gone ahead, wives of state governors have gone ahead to, create centers for cancer and all of that. But yet, we still see patients, preferring to go for treatment outside of the country, or rather, they get better services. Would you say that the problem is the facility, or would you say that our personnel are not trained enough? Where is the problem in terms of getting treatment, or if you like, in Nigeria?
Thank you so much for that question. It may interest you to know that last year, October, I had a collaboration with the First Lady of Adamawa State, where they brought the screening machines, and they were able to do almost 1,000 women came out after the sensitization. They came out for screening, and we did that screening for those women in Adamawa State. And I want to believe the same thing is going on with some other First Ladies in Nigeria, which of course, if all of them will come into and key into this, it's really going to help.
No, besides screening, we're talking about the treatments now. Besides screening that is being done, cancer survivors in the country that you have had interaction with, there's a challenge, as to why, besides the cost, why people would prefer to get treatment outside of the country. Would you say that besides having facilities in place, do we have trained personnel to handle the cases?
Definitely we do. In Nigeria, we do have personnel, trained personnel to handle the cases of cancers. Why? Because I've had that experience, not only in Nigeria, I have been going for series of tests, both National Hospital and other places. They've done it. The doctors and the nurses, we have very trained, good personnel here. Even though...
So was there a delay in your diagnosis?
Yeah, from the first instance when when they removed the breast, the lump.
Before removing the lump, before you knew you had cancer, was there a delay in diagnosis? What I tried to explain, tried to ask earlier, because we've seen patients talk about the fact that when they are ill, doctors just keep pushing them, it's malaria, it's typhoid, it's this, and then after so long a time of treating all kinds of ailments, they tell you it's cancer. So the problem is not diagnosing it at the initial stage. So did you have that challenge? And that's why I'm asking if the personnel are actually, trained enough to...
Honestly, during my time, that was 2015-16, there wasn't any delay. Okay, I've not had any delay to that effect. But subsequently in life, coming in contact with those cancer survivors, there is, according to the...
So was it a fault of facilities or a fault of personnel?
It has to be with the facilities. Honestly, because some of the facilities here, some of them are not working. Some. According to the report I had when I had an interaction with some of these survivors, some of the facilities are not working. So if the facilities are not working, how do you expect the personnel to work? That's the truth.
All right, Mrs. Malame, let's I beg your pardon. let's just pause for a while. And
increasing cases of cancer in the country. Our guests are still very much with us. Before we went on that break, the cancer survivor with us, Mrs. Ladimark Maman, was sharing her experience and the issues as regards access to treatment. And then, if you've been following the conversation, I was asking about the challenge with treatment in the country, and then Mrs. Maman would also share a bit of her own treatment plan, because earlier she told us about not going for chemo, and then you're talking about having your scans done in the UK, in India, and all of that. Could you, just let us know why you're having them in these countries instead of Nigeria?
Thank you. Well, at that time, 2015-16, there wasn't any PET scan here in Nigeria, as per our investigation. Okay, so after a year, I had to travel to India first and foremost to do to check up again, and in the process after the PET scan, they realized that there's also a lump on the other breast. They did biopsy, and unfortunately, when they did the other breast here, they didn't do the auxiliary clearance. So in India, they had to do the auxiliary clearance. And in the process of doing that, they had to take me to the theater to remove the lump there, and took it to the lab for checkup. And to the glory of God, the result was out. There wasn't any cancer. So I was cancer free. No chemo. Even the oncologist there, I have all my reports there. They gave me a certificate cancer free. So I came back after a year, and every year I do my checkup two times here in Nigeria, not the PET scan, but after the India, I did another PET scan. Okay, I don't know, but what I think is that we have a PET scan in Lagos. We have a PET scan in Lagos, and looking at the cost, the cost is so.
That's why I want to bring in Professor Malome on cost, because even in my interaction, a friend of ours was also on this program. In fact, she survived a stage 4 cancer. Chioma, yes,
Chioma, yeah.
Yes, she survived a stage 4 cancer, and she was here to share, the burden. In fact, she had to come back to the country to have her, to have her own treatment because of the cost over there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about the PPP arrangement that the federal government have had over the years, with especially the big pharmaceutical companies, to ensure that access to drugs and the costs are reduced. But others are also saying, look, we must also mainstream this cost to our NHIS, such that cost is personalized to the pockets of the bearers of this disease. That's why there was a fund. Why are people not accessing that fund?
So thank you very, very much. So if you look at just what you have just said, you have confirmed, the treatment of cancer is expensive anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. Unfortunately, we are living in the low middle income countries, and our GDPs is actually nothing to write home about. The level of people living below $1 is continuously increasing. But
sorry, on the GDP, let me just give you, this is on the net. Cancer care in sub-Saharan African countries: Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. It's a comparative analysis with GDP. Nigeria GDP per capita of $2.
$2.
Yes, that's as at 2020. Ghana has $2,300 dollar, and Kenya has $1,800. Now, their national health insurance scheme for Nigeria, NHIS does not cover cancer care. Ghana, NHIS only covers breast and cervical cancer care. Kenya, NHIF covers all cancer care. We are at par with the GDP, and these are 3 African countries.
Okay, so you see, sometimes we have to be wary and be very careful where we get our information. That is why I'm scared of social media.
No, this is not
since my
inception
in office, we have series of meetings with the National Health Insurance Agency on that. And even before my coming, even before the establishment of the institute, we know that there are subsidies. Some form of cancer, like the diagnosis and some surgeries, and even some chemotherapy services are covered by NHIS. Our major problem is how many people are covered by NHIS. That is it. But they have some form of coverage for diagnosis, surgery, and even access to chemotherapy. The last meeting that I had, because we have like a kind of committee from my own angle and from the National Health Insurance Scheme, that we are meeting regularly to improve the access and smoothing the hitches that we're having in the area. What our plan currently is to see how we can bring radiotherapy into it. And yes, we still have some centers, because there is some component of radiotherapy that has been brought into it. But still, because of the percentage of coverage, is still a problem. If you go to the National Hospital today, they will tell you that they have been treating people with NHIS on radiotherapy at 50% subsidized rate. They have been doing that. So, but because it's not everybody that is on HIs, so I think we should clamor for more coverage. NHIS coverage.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you,
So that is the
Professor Malami. We actually hope that the government will do much more, away from what you have already mentioned, just to assist those that have cancer. We have Professor Bello Abubakar Mohammed, the Chief Consultant Clinical Oncologist from the National Hospital Abuja. Due to connection issues, he's just joining us now, and I just hope he's been following the conversation even without the connection, the Zoom connection there. But Professor Mohammed, if you can hear me, thank you for staying put, and then thank God for the clear connection now. Talking about the rising cases of cancer, we've already established, some facts here, talking about the causes, and then a survivor shares her experience with us, and then we've had an oncologist too, in Kano, talk about some of the challenges in terms of treatment and cost and all that. But I'd like to hear from you, your perspectives as to the rising cases of cancer in the country, and then what you think the government could do better, just so that we can be able to reduce the mortality rate.
So much. Good morning, Nigeria. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. So I'm so happy to be here again. And thank you for your questions. I've been following the discussion on live stream of NTA, which is fantastic. And so I've heard what the president of the Nigerian Cancer Society has said, and also my other two professional colleagues and brothers. Yes, the rising cancer pandemic, I must say, it's something that is quite alarming, and especially not only in Nigeria, but for the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. And that is why I'm here in Cape Town attending a conference. And one of the key things that we're going to be discussing here is how we can actually leverage on pharma to see how they can support our patients, back home, and see how they can actually provide some form of access to care. But beyond that, Nigeria must take cancer care as a national emergency. If we don't do that, I don't think that we are not going to make any progress. We have been talking the talk, and it is time that we walk the talk. Because in the last 10, 15 years, the incidents have exponentially grown, and facilities, infrastructures, and capacity has not actually improved at that level. So it is something that government must really rise to the occasion and be able to do more. We're not saying that government is not doing anything, but it is not good enough. Government should do much, much better in terms of providing, for example, the vaccine that they've started is laudable, but it should also cover more people. That is one in the HPV vaccine. And then the primary health care units around the country should be empowered to be able to screen people for cancers, especially the three most prevalent cancers, cervical cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer. Primary health care should be able to do that, so that when they have very early, like in prostate, in cervical cancer, if they are able to detect precancerous conditions, they should be able to refer them quickly to secondary hospitals where they can get biopsies and histologies and diagnosis. If we do that, I want to believe that we'll be able to get things done, and we'll be able to detect cancers a little bit early. The other thing is that there are things that we can do. We should go from other countries. Take, for instance, there was a massive screening for liver cancer, for hepatitis in Egypt just 2-3 years ago. And they are able to screen over 60 million people. And because of that, they have a high prevalence of liver cancer, but it is now crashing to literally 0.something%. And this is something that we can, it's a low-hanging fruit. We can just copy and paste and be able to do it. So we want to challenge policymakers this time around and be able to, insist that more should be done for our people.
Thank you. Unfortunately, you joined us quite, we were able to connect with you quite late. We're far into the program, but you talked about diagnosis. Early diagnosis is key. And the guests have also talked about the fact that a lot of women, present, for checks. And we know the efforts, some women, wives of executives, Dr. Zainab Bagudu, for instance, Betty Akeredolu, for instance, Ambassador Abdulrazak, and other first ladies. I know putting up centers where the women can go, for free checks, free diagnosis. That is happening. So we're getting improvement. But of course, Dr. Inua talked about the cost, when they progress to access, treatment and all that. The cost of obtaining those treatments, which is key. And I've asked Professor Malami here, why is it that patients are not accessing the cancer fund? And why is it also that we are yet to mainstream cancer care in our NHIS package when other countries like Ghana and Kenya have cancer care mainstreamed in their insurance schemes?
Start with the last question. It is not completely correct to say that it is not part of the insurance scheme. We have been following the National Health Insurance Authority for the last 10 years, and part of the treatment. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Prof. Go. We'll lost to you.
So yes, the National Health Insurance you talked about. It's not true that we are not accessing cancer care. There is a limited cancer care that is being assessed by people that have actually subscribed to it. So, and that's account for less than 2% of the population. And this is where the problem is. 2%. You see, Nigeria is over 200 million. What Her Excellency Dr. Zainab Bagudu Shinkafi and in fact all the First Ladies Against Cancer, the flag group, have been doing is too little, too small. We must engage government at all levels, from local government to state governments to federal government, to be able to have any meaningful impact. They are doing their own, but it is not good. It's not enough, because we have such a large population. People must rise to the occasion. You see, if you travel around the world, you will see that foundations are the ones that are providing comprehensive cancer care around the world, but not in Nigeria. You hardly see philanthropists coming to provide significant chunk of money to say this is for patients that need care for cancer. And we must be able to engage, and that's one of the things that I want to use this opportunity to really use the NGOs to make sure that they are able to get philanthropists to be able to put some money into the Cancer Health Fund. Because the origin of the Health Health Fund was that government will provide certain amount of money, philanthropists will also provide, and captains of industries will also provide certain amount. But what happened was that government was able to provide certain amount of money for the CHF, the Cancer Health Fund, but every other person have literally taken away. And that is why the money is so small and it is not able to cover a significant number of people. And I said Professor Malami has a Herculean task really in front of him to be able to convince captain of industries and so many other people to put into the pool, because that is the only way, since we do know that government alone cannot do it, and we must be able to engage people of goodwill to support cancer care. Nowhere in the world is cancer care cheap, Nowhere in the world is cancer care free, and people must be able to support one another. And that is the only way we can get out of the wood. Otherwise, this epidemic of cancer will continue to persist.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed. Of course, everyone must be involved in this fight. You know, that's the message. Yes, not just government alone. But, you know, because we're out of time and, you know, as we begin to wrap up the conversation, I'd like to get to Dr. Mustafa. This time, I want to talk about what individuals can do, you know, in the way to prevent, you know, some of these cancers. Maybe you could just give us a few. First and foremost, is it true that, you know, breastfeeding, you know, has a way of reducing the possibility of coming down with breast cancer? And then what can we really do, you know, lifestyle and all of that, just to prevent cancers? And then what would you be your prescription now, if you like, your recommendation to the director of NICRAT as regards the HPV? Now, HPV is out there, it's free. In fact, just yesterday, I found out that amongst the routine immunization, meaning in any government facility you go to, you can get HPV. But people are not assessing it. There's this narrative out there about the HPV vaccine, and then I don't know what's going on. Maybe you could just speak to that, you know, as we wrap up the conversation.
Let me start with the preventive factors for the breast cancer, as you mentioned. Yeah, it was documented and research done in some preventive measures for breast cancer, like breastfeeding you are talking about. Breastfeeding, woman breastfeeding for 12 months give some level of protection for breast cancer, which we normally encourage women to breastfeed at least 12 months. It will give up to like 7% protective measure. And also, DG mentioned the exercise, which also give a protection for the breast cancer. 30 minutes in a day, 5 times a week, also give some level of protection too. And also all the other protective measures, risk factors. If you look at the risk factor, if you can avoid yourself from that risk factor, also give you some protection, like avoiding smoking, cigarette smoking, alcohol. All these can give a level of protection. And also look at the habit of dieting, eating a balanced diet, vegetable, fruit, also give a protective measures, and also reducing the intake of the fatty food too. So all these are the protective measures for the breast cancer too. And also, if you look at talking about what the government will do more, if you look at in terms of the manpower personnel, let's talk about the personnel. If you look at Nigeria, if you talk about the surgical oncology, we have a very few surgical oncologists in Nigeria, and we need to train more people in surgery to specialize in surgical oncology. And also, in terms of the clinical oncology, we are very few in Nigeria, less than 100, which is too low for the population of over 200 million people in Nigeria. And also talk about the radiographers, medical physicists, very few. And in terms of the equipment machines, if you look at the Atomic Energy Agency, International Atomic Energy Agency, they give a recommendation like in every 250,000 population supposed to have a...
Dr. Inua, I'm sorry, we had to come in here because we're almost running out of time. We'd like to thank you. I don't know if we can just take one more question from Professor Bello Abubakar just before we say our goodbyes. Professor Bello, you've called for a national emergency on cancer. Just in less than maybe 60 seconds, if you may, can you tell us what that translates to in terms of actionable steps?
So thank you very much. What I mean by calling that is that the Minister of State for Health, who is in charge of cancer, should call all experts and philanthropists and people of goodwill to sit down and look at what is the statistics of cancer. What are the things that we should be able to do that is different, that will make the narrative change? Because the way it is now, we need a lot of funding for infrastructure, for capacity building, and also for even the treatment of patients. So government can't do it alone. But government can give an impetus. Government can drive the policy and be able to carry everybody along so that we will be able to have a meaningful result. Other than that, I don't see how we are going to make any change. We've been talking about this for the last 10, 15 years. Claire, we have been on this program together, and nothing has really changed so far. We need to change the narrative, and this is the time to do it.
Professor Bello Mohammed, please thank you very much. I know we have been talking about this for a long time, and that's why I gave you the chance to emphasize on that call for a national emergency. Professor Bello Mohammed, Chief Consultant, Clinical Oncologist at the National Hospital Abuja, of course, who is attending a summit in South Africa. He joined us via Zoom. I would have asked you how you celebrated the Eagles' victory over South Africa. Well, we don't have time. Thank you, Prof. That will be another day. Let me also appreciate, of course, Dr. Adamu Al-Hassan Umar, President, Nigerian Cancer Society, who joined us from Kano. Dr. Mohammed Inua Mustafa, also who joined us from Kano, Chief Consultant, Clinical Oncologist. We'd like to thank you, both of you. Mrs. Ladi Mark Maman, thank you very much. And finally, of course, Professor Usman Aliyu Malami, who is the DG CEO, National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment, NICRAT. Thank you very much. Saturday, do we take global tidbits from our foreign scene? No,
that's all.
That's all. All right. Okay, Ire.
All right, that's a Good Morning Nigeria today. I encourage you to watch the match between Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire on Sunday. Have a beautiful weekend.
You don't need to encourage Nigerians. They will watch. They will watch. All right, I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. I thank you for watching as always, and do have a pleasant weekend. Don't forget, the medical advice is if you have high BP, please stay away from your TV screens. Just wait after the match, and then, of course, you can celebrate. We wish the Eagles super luck. And to Nigerians, super luck. We'll see you next week.